Hello folks, welcome to this tutorial. This is data skills for everyone and we are still on basic text processing in Python, how to handle text with confidence. And in this video, I will tackle yet another interesting problem. You remember from the last tutorial that we did how to turn a collection of text data into a table of numbers, and we went about that using loops. In this video, I want to go about the same problem, trying to avoid loops. And so we apply the use of the pandas library to go about the same more efficiently without the use of loops. Essentially, we end up with a table just like this. Okay, so you didn't you haven't already seen that video, I encourage you to go and look at that. So if you want to see what we have for today, let's go in there without wasting too much time. Awesome. So here we are in our favorite spiders IDE. And just to start off from where we stopped the last time, you remember these were the things that we had to do. Okay, so I'm gonna basically use the same sequence, and we are not just gonna reading some data files from some files. We're just gonna use the fakest library to create some dummy or fake data that we would use in the demonstration. And if you remember, this is how we use the faker library to generate some fake data. Okay, so basically this is how it works. You import the faker library and we instantiate it like that. We write a function that does a list comprehension and generates a number of how many? Just 10 of them. So 10, and think about this like a collection of articles with each one having a title and then the text referring to the article body. Okay, so based on that, we generate these. So if we run these lines here, we have some data sitting there ready to be used. And also, if you remember from last time, when we have generated the data, we also did some calculations on it. And this is how the calculations that we did looked like. Okay, so we went through item by item in the data that we had collected, and we did some manipulations to the data using for loop. So today, this is what we want to avoid. This is what we want to avoid. We want to achieve the same result without having to go through that. Okay, so I'm going to comment everything out. In fact, just delete it, and then we are going to use pandas to achieve the same result. So how do we begin? Let's first of all import the pandas library, and then we're going to create a data frame like that using the data that we have already read into our IDE. So let's do a data frame, and we have data. So this is simple. Let me run these two lines together like that. Good. And you can see that we have a data frame using the body of text that we generated. Okay, so each one has a title and each one has a text that we can now use to do some further calculations. Okay, so nicely, what we are going to do next is to create some new columns that are going to base on the existing columns that we have in the data frame. Okay, so how do we do that? In the first instance, we used loops, but this time pandas has some nice functions that we can use. So one of them is data frame dot assign, and this one allows us to create the name of the column like that. So we want number of words, and what you can do is to use the lambda function like this. Okay, so this here is actually going to return the data frame itself. Okay, and by doing x dot say text, we can have access to the column Okay, and then what next can we do? Then we can do that column dot apply, okay, which would also be able to do something like this. Lambda, let's call it y, just to be able to differentiate. And when you do this, it returns row by row for all the items that you have in this text column. Okay, so for each row, then we can do a string manipulation and do that row, which is y dot split. Unfortunately, y is a string data, so we can easily do that, and this should work nicely. So if everything went correctly, let's run that and see. And you can see that we now have a third column and words, which contains the number of words in each row. Okay, so what the data frame dot assign does is to give us a new data frame. Okay, so to save this, we would just replace the old data frame with that one. And even though the data frame dot assign allows us to um, simultaneously create multiple columns using this same method, I just want to break it down into separate lines, and we can do a similar thing for the number of characters that there are in our text body. Okay, and so here we don't need to do any split, we just want to count the characters, and so this should be sufficient, and we can do that as well. So if you just look here, you can see straight away that we have two new columns added, which is making a total of 4 columns now, and the last one is displaying here, which is the number of characters. Awesome. Well, the next thing that I want to just add to this is that you realize that we are doing this lambda thing twice, and it can be confusing and too long. What we could have done instead would have been just to go directly and do a column. Okay, so we choose a column, and then we do dot apply. Okay, so let's see how that can work in action. And to make sure that we have a fresh new data frame that we're going to use for that calculation, I'm just going to run this line again so that we have a clean set of data to work with, and we can now create the name of the new column that we are interested in. It's still going to be, sorry, it's still going to be number of words, and we will do this calculation based on an already existing column. You can either do this, which is the text column, and do dot apply. Now we can do a lambda function again, and x would be each row that we have in this text column. Okay, so for each row we want to do a split, right? So it's going to be x dot split. So the value in each row, we can split it nicely like this because it's a text value. And now we can put everything into the length function, and it would generate the number of words that we have. And in the same way we can do for number of characters. Okay, oops, not words again, this time it's characters. And there's no need to do the split just like I did in the first instance. Okay, so if we run these two lines together, in fact all three together, let's see, what did we do wrong here? Yes, so looking at the error here, I think we did a misspelling. Okay, so it's triple P instead of a double P. All right, so let's correct that. And now let's do that again. Let's run these two lines. Awesome. So everything worked correctly. And we can now take a look at our data frame and see what we have in it. Same as before, we have 4 columns with everything showing nicely. Okay, so basically this is how you can go ahead and apply the same results to any number of rows of data. So if we increase this to say 1,000, we could as well easily, apply this result here. And let's generate some data again, just like from before. We have a data frame that you can check the dimensions, okay, and see that it's 1,000 rows right now. And we can go ahead and do this calculation all over again, and you can see the result very fast, nice and easy. Okay, so this is how you can go ahead using pandas data frame to do this kind of manipulation, and it's really cool to have this tool at your fingertips. All right, so folks, that's all we have for this video. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to know about it. Thanks for watching, and see you some other time.